over time. So when the Bolsheviks came to power in Russia, their strategic goal was the universal victory of communism. They believed that they were a part of the world revolution. But the world revolution did not really happen, and as a result, the Bolsheviks found themselves in the position of the only communist regime, a sort of a foothold of the world revolution, and at the same time the leader of the world revolution, which was postponed at the time. So in order to survive in this capitalist world, which was hostile by definition from the Soviet point of view, and in order to be able to lead the world proletariat to victory when the time comes, the Soviet regime, the Soviet state, had to become an economic and military superpower. In other words, it had to undergo rapid modernization and industrialization. And for this, two things were necessary at the same time, or at least appeared necessary from the point of view of the Soviet regime in power. On the one hand, the Soviet regime resorted immediately to violence and coercion as an important element of its modernization plans for future. And at the same time, in order to realize those goals of modernization and industrialization, the Soviets needed a period of peace and economic cooperation with the capitalist West, the very capitalist West which they were bent to destroy. Because the capitalist West was the source of technology necessary to effect any kind of modernization. So the capitalist West had a dual status from the point of view of the Soviet regime generally, or at least until the Cold War. It was a strategic enemy, but at the same time it was a tactical partner. To use Lenin's formulation, the West was supposed to sell the Soviets the rope with which the Soviets would then hang the Western capitalists. So communicating with the West for the Soviets was a sort of double phenomenon. They were projecting two images to the West. For the Western revolutionaries, the fellow communists, the image of the Soviet regime was that of the leader of the international revolution. Those Western revolutionaries had to be reassured that the Soviets stay on track, that they will lead them to the victory and the destruction of the bourgeoisie. And of course, it was understood, more or less, that that violence was, of course, the revolutionary way of changing the world. But for Western establishments, the economic establishments and political establishments, meaning for these tactical partners or hopeful partners, a completely different image was to be projected. They needed to be reassured that the Soviet regime is a reliable economic partner, that in fact it is moderate, well-intentioned, rational, and it pursues humanitarian goals with humanitarian methods. So what happened to the element of violence? Well, it had to be concealed somehow, or at least justified and presented as necessary and temporary. Now the reactions to the Soviet the violence, the violent nature of the Bolshevik regime in the West. Traditionally, it is usually assumed that there was this ideological split in the West, that the left was mostly willing to dismiss or rationalize reports about the violent nature of the Bolshevik regime, and the right took the opposite course. It was willing to condemn and to look for reasons to show this violent nature of this regime. It is a very simplifying view, in my opinion, and it is partially true, but only partially true. Much better, well, in fact, there was a split on both sides, precisely on the issue of how to view the violent nature of the Bolshevik regime. In my view, a more productive approach is to see three factors motivating the dismissals and denials of Soviet crimes on the part of Western audiences. And it would be the ideological motivation, economic or business motivation, and the third, usually closely connected with the second, would be what politics, realpolitik, or geopolitics. As far as the ideological motivations, well, they were very, very important, of course, especially for the left. But the main split in the Western left was exactly over how to understand this Soviet violence and coercion, and some of the people were moving towards the direction that this is necessary, and actually it's not so bad, initially at least, during the Red Terror, and the others were already drawing the line between what is happening in the Soviet Union and what the goals of the left are. And I will just quote two statements from the 1920s. Louise Bryant, widow of John Reed, wrote about the Red Terror, of course, from the French Riviera, not from Russia. Quote, "It was Dzerzhinsky's duty to see that the prisoners were quickly and humanely disposed of. He performed this grim task with a dispatch and an efficiency for which even the condemned must have been grateful. In that, nothing is more horrible than an executioner whose hand trembles and whose heart wavers." So that was one way of viewing it. Well, there were all kinds of similar statements, but on the other side, there were those who found it very uneasy or impossible to accept this revolutionary violence from the position of the left. In 1925, a collection of letters from prisons and camps by political prisoners, and I mean here political prisoners meaning the Bolsheviks, the socialist revolutionaries, and the anarchists. A collection of reports, letters, and also Soviet documents referring to those political prisoners was published in the West, and the publishers asked a large number of cultural celebrities, and really celebrities of the first rank in the West, to write little commentaries about it. And And many of these people represented the left rather than the right. And for instance, Rebecca West writes, quote, "Those who like rather than dislike humanity and are concerned with its future well-being are proud to uphold the Soviet government. But if the Soviet government imagines it can count on our support without earning it by adherence to certain fundamental decencies, it is mistaken. It must give its citizens the right to free speech, free association, and a free press. If it failed to do so, we in England cannot compromise our position by supporting it. For that would be to render ridiculous and inconsistent our demand, which is a vital part of our movement, that those liberties should be the birthright of our fellow subjects in India, in Egypt, and in the British Empire generally." So we have this kind of split already from the very beginning on the left. Now,